7-win type teams. I can't wait to let 18 to 22-year-olds emotionally ruin me.
I made a call, to Vegas. I said, look, we actually need the favorite here.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Thanksgiving. Belated, day late. Bruce and the Bear back to get you all up to speed on the college football weekend, which feels, Bruce, like it's setting up for one of those crazy weekends. We're about to go to half here as we're recording this. Ole Miss up 21-10 over Mississippi State. Utah in a struggle with Kansas. But last week was kind of the anomaly. You had every team in the top 15 win. This week, you got the top 15 matchup where I am in Ann Arbor between Ohio State, Michigan. You've got 4 other top 15 teams away from home. And then you got against another ranked opponent. And then you got 7 who are on the road against an unranked opponent. So it feels like one of those weekends where we will get a shakeup. The question of is just where.
Yeah, Bear, look, I think you're at the most intriguing game just because so much of the history that we've had in recently, certainly with Ryan Day, certainly with the Wolverines. It's shocking. Last year, you and I were both in Columbus when it was like, what, a 20.5-point underdog that Michigan was. No offense what to speak of. And they still found a way to win. There was all kinds of fireworks after the game. I'm like, this can't happen again. I mean, Michigan has a better offense than they did last year because they didn't have an offense. And they actually looked pretty good last week against Maryland on the road. What's your sense here? It's a 9.5-point favorite. No one's been able to do anything on the Buckeyes defense. I mean, is this the year that Ryan Day and the Buckeyes get a lot of payback?
Well, that's the feeling I get, is that if not this year, then when? But like I said, at the same time last year, Michigan couldn't complete a forward pass, and they were able still to pull the upset. I still just ultimately have questions as to how many points Michigan is going to be able to score. I don't know in a high pressure situation if Bryce Underwood is going to be able to throw the ball on that Ohio State secondary. I don't know if Marshall, obviously he's going to play. It's a pain tolerance thing. How successful he will be. Feels like it sets up for the biggest question I have in the game is Ohio State. Where are they between the years? Go in, try and play as loose as you can. Don't play the game in a phone book like they did a phone booth rather, not phone book, like they did last year. Jeremiah Smith, Cornell Tate, good to go. Open it up. Put your playmakers in the best position to make plays, and I think they'll be okay. The longer the game goes close, the worse it gets for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and the last thing, if you're a Buckeye fan or a Buckeye player, is it's a tight game going into the fourth quarter. Because one thing we know for sure, Michigan players believe, and Michigan coaches certainly believe this, if the game gets into the last quarter, the Buckeyes will melt down and Michigan will maul them. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but you look at who's dominated the run game, and that's the barometer. And Ohio State doesn't run it great. I know Bo Jackson's come on in the last few weeks, certainly, but that's been Michigan's MO, and it's going to be fascinating to see if form holds. I mean, my gut, and I was wrong last year, I thought Ryan Day was going to get a lot of payback last year. Maybe he just saves it for Ann Arbor on this trip. Cannot wait to see that. I hope you're going to get some weather there. It sounds like it's going to be cold. Is it going to be snowing when the game happens, though?
Oh, I can assure you it is cold. I can promise you that it is cold. And yeah, the reports are a little maybe some flurries coming down there and snow in the second half. I think once the game ends is when the snow is going to start to get heavier. But yeah, we might see some snow blowing around and a nice gray background and kind of mud brown colored grass rather. Feels just like Big Ten football tomorrow.
Can't wait. The other game I really am interested in is actually later tonight. It is Texas against the undefeated Texas A&M Aggies. This Aggie group feels a lot different, although they needed a frantic comeback, a couple of weeks ago when they got South Carolina and felt like they were a little bit sleepwalking in the beginning of the game. Arch Manning is playing a lot better over the last couple of weeks. We don't know how good their run game is. Their defense is talented. Sometimes it feels like it's underachieved a little bit. A&M is 3-0 this year on the road versus ranked teams, right? That's the stat, I believe.
Yep.
What do you read into
And,
that?
and that's crazy because they had been a team that in those types of games, they hadn't won a game like that since early in the Kevin Sumlin era. I think they lost like 13 straight games, but yeah, they have won the games this year, and I think that's a big credit to Mike Elko, his staff, and Marcel Reed. I, I don't know ultimately how good Texas really is. Like, yeah, you got the win against Vandy, but you should beat Vandy on your home field. You got the win against Oklahoma, and it took a special teams return to make the big play against an Oklahoma offense with John Mateer, who couldn't really throw the ball at that time. I think Texas A&M is just better. Now, again, rivalry games, so much at stake, anything kind of. But I think A&M goes here and wins. Don't you?
I do. I've come to the belief that this Texas team is a year away. I really think it when you look at especially all the pieces on offense. I also would worry if I was Steve Sarkisian about how well we will be able to protect Arch. We know Arch can move, but Arch could move last year when they put him in against Georgia, and Georgia got after him. And I feel like this A&M defensive front, especially with Cassius Howell, feels a little bit like the Georgia one did, where they can get after you. You can never rule out Sark pulling an upset here. But right now it feels like the Aggies maybe got that wake-up call they needed in the first half against the Gamecocks, and I feel like they're rolling. We know they're going to play. And it's also the subplot here is I think it's a chance for a really good quarterback in this game, and it's not Arch, to say, hey, don't forget about me in the Heisman race, because he's been
Well,
pretty spectacular at times.
you mentioned Sark and Texas maybe being a year away. Sark going to be there next year?
I think so. Everybody around there who's close to him seems to think he will be. We've heard all these rumors. You had our friend Desmond stir it up a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah, it was weird.
It is odd. I don't know. I mean, my guess is he's still going to be there because again, this should be a really good team for him next year. But you just never know behind the scenes. I mean, this would be the biggest of all the jobs that have come open, and there's a big job that's open right now in Baton Rouge. LSU plays in a big game because they're playing at a really impressive defensive team in Norman. And it's really, I don't think LSU can play spoiler. I mean, I guess they could. I don't think they will. They're without two of their most talented receivers. Nussmeier's not going to play. They're really banged up. And you also wonder, for all the talk about distraction with Lane Kiffin and Oxford, I would worry about the distraction of the dysfunction of everything going on in Baton Rouge. I mean, I could see them being lucky to get 10 yards in this game, Bear.
I agree. At the same time, though, weather is supposed to be kind of very windy there. Some rain. This feels like a sloppy game, and I guess it would favor Oklahoma. Just maybe running Mateer a bunch if the field is kind of messy and whatever else. But I don't know. Yeah, this number moved up to 10.5, so I blew through the 10. So I think bettors kind of feel the same way you do about this game. But again, you're talking about an Oklahoma team that the Alabama, they look, and Brent Venables has even mentioned it. It's not a beauty contest. They've won games. You've gotten interception returns for touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. Like the offense has not been great. It's the worst offense of any of the college football playoff contenders. So they feel like Oklahoma, I think, will win. It would not surprise me if this game was close, though. Maybe LSU just goes out there one last time with Frank Wilson and kind of the players that are out there laying on the line, knowing that maybe they're looking to either impress Lane Kiffin, should Lane ultimately be the guy that comes in there, or impress someone in the portal if they're looking to move on. Double digits feels like a lot to potentially lay here with an offense that certainly is not very high powered.
Yeah, and Blake Baker's a good defensive coach at LSU. We'll see. I mean, again, maybe this is a case where LSU guys are trying to make a case not just for their next coach, but maybe one at a different program, because they may think they're cleaning house and they gotta, everybody's a free agent now. So The other one in the SEC that's always a great game is the Iron Bowl. You never know what you're getting. And you have Auburn now, new quarterback. They've hit the, kind of the roulette wheel on it. Their coaching search has gotten a little weirder by the week, by the day this week, from my understanding. So I don't know if they think, hey,
Auburn, it should get weird, right?
yeah, but not this weird. I mean, DJ Durkin might actually be in play to keep the job. Who knows? If they beat Alabama, and this is an Alabama team, it's a road game, and we know that the Tide under Kalen DeBoer has struggled in road games, especially against physical teams. I mean, if you're a betting man, and that's what we're talking about here.
Who, me, a betting man?
Yeah, well, how good of a chance do you have for? And the other thing that would happen here, by the way, is this would probably unlodge some of the playoff chaos logjam if the Iron Bowl ends up going for an upset. It's only what, a 5.5 point spread here. So
yeah, it's down. It's down from 6 to 5.5, and a lot of support for Auburn out there. And I think here in Seattle are the two spots where we're most likely to get kind of a playoff altering kind of loss. You look at the last 4 games that have been played at Jordan-Hare in this rivalry. You've had the last 2. Alabama's been north of a 2-touchdown favorite, and it came down to late close wins from Alabama. The 2 before that, Alabama was favored by less than a touchdown, like they are now, and they wound up losing the game outright. So crazy things. This is kind of a house of horrors for Alabama, and I wonder if the added dimension of Deuce Knight at quarterback now maybe hinders the Alabama defense a little bit. Will that Alabama offensive line be under a lot of duress from the front and the pass rush that Auburn can bring? Would not surprise me at all to see Auburn pull an upset here. And I would take I took Auburn +6 earlier in the week, 5.5. I don't like it as much because 6 is kind of a very common landing point. But this is a spot where I think we could see a little bit of potential cast. Let me ask you a question. More pressure this week. Ryan Day and Ohio State to win at Michigan, knowing that Ryan Day and Ohio State won the national championship last year, or B, Kalen DeBoer in Alabama to win at Jordan-Hare, knowing that if you lose, you're out of the playoff and all that goodwill and good spirit that was built up after the shocking loss to open the year at Florida State was built up. That's fun.
I was all set to say Ryan Day, there is no other answer. And then you mentioned Kalen DeBoer does not have as much capital built up as Ryan Day. And so, I don't think I don't think Kalen DeBoer is looking at other jobs. The only question is if you lose the Iron Bowl, does all heck break loose in that state? It's a game where I don't.
Does? It will.
Yeah, it will, right? And, what's interesting, Deuce Knight, super talented, dual threat quarterback. What was interesting was he was committed to Notre Dame. He could do the Irish a big favor here. I mean, I don't think they really need it. Like, I think they're probably going
And
ahead
Miami.
of the Tide. Yeah, I mean, but just his old connection to Notre Dame, certainly. I mean, he's definitely talented enough to give them all sorts of problems. I mean, if Florida State's quarterback gave them problems, this guy is like 6 inches taller and probably 40 pounds heavier and just as fast. So it's, man, I would hate to think if you're Ryan Day, you lose that game again, what that would be like. But I don't think they're firing him. I don't know what happens. I don't think Greg Byrne wants to pull the plug on in any circumstances with Kalen DeBoer either. But it would get ugly, and there's no Feinbaum show blasting all around every day of the week in the Big Ten. There is right in Kalen DeBoer's backyard.
I don't think Greg Bird's looking to get rid of him. What I do think that potentially could open up is should another job open up. Kalen DeBoer would be a name that I think would be at top of a lot of people's list for any potential big job openings. And maybe if someone were to approach him, it would be like, do I really want to deal with this? Go 9-3 and lose to Auburn, and like for my quality of health and quality of mental health and well-being, uh, could we be better off somewhere else? So we'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, he's from everything I've heard from people close to him is that he and his family do like it there, and I think he wants to be there. He wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't think there was gonna be a lot of immense pressure around it. So we'll see. I don't think you wanna but I think it would behoove you to win this game. I don't think you wanna ratchet up the dial like that.
No, don't
Bear
want to test it.
Yeah, Bear, we talked a minute ago about Miami and their situation. They have a tough game. They play number 22 Pittsburgh, who had a big win last week against, jumped all over Georgia Tech. The week before that, they got jumped all over by Notre Dame. So obviously, if you're a committee member, yeah, there's the head-to-head with Miami and Notre Dame, but now you have the common opponent deal. Miami is a touchdown favorite. Carson Beck has played a couple of his best games in the last few weeks. That has been good. It's helped them to get Mark Fletcher healthy to go with Gerard Pringle. But Pitt's really good, and it's a road game. Pat Narduzzi, you never underestimate him. What do you expect to happen in this one?
I think Miami will win. I would be surprised if they dropped it here. Look, I get the hesitation in wanting to back Miami in a November road game, especially in the Northeast in a cold weather environment. You saw them lose at Pitt in 2017. Granted, Mario Cristobal was not the head coach then. Undefeated Miami lost to Kenny Pickett, who I think was making his first or second career start in that game. Wound up knocking Miami out of playoff contention. And then last year at the Dome in Syracuse, Canes were up 21-0. Blew a lead, didn't make the ACC championship game, didn't make the playoff as a result. And I almost get the sense that there's kind of this feeling from the committee, like the worst possible thing that happened to Miami was when that SMU loss took place. It was right before the playoff committee rankings began, and they felt the committee treated it like a highlight match. They put them all the way behind all the other teams because of when it was. And I think there was a little bit of subliminal feeling like, they won't win out, though. They'll lose again, and we won't have to worry about them. But here they are. They've been great the last few weeks. And the one thing I just want to push back a little bit on the common opponent thing, remember the week of the Notre Dame Pitt game. I mean, Pat Narduzzi downplayed that game. This game doesn't mean anything. And your players are going to hear that. And, we can lose 113-10 or whatever the hell he said, as long as we win the next two. Well, they went out and played like they didn't really necessarily want the game or need the game or care about the game. Notre Dame wound up winning the game. This is a game now where Miami has to go to Pitt. And Pitt got the win at Georgia Tech last week. And now Pitt, if they win, they're in contention for an ACC championship game berth. So it's not exactly apples to apples when you're comparing the game, being that Notre Dame isn't in the conference and the game didn't really mean much to Pitt. And I know people are talking. It's funny how Notre Dame, just their fans and whatever, they don't want to. All they want to talk about anything but the game that took place at Hard Rock in August. But now you'll bring up like the Syracuse game. Okay, well, Syracuse played a ninth string walk-on lacrosse player, a quarterback last week. You don't want to talk about like NC State when Miami led 24-0 at half and 31-0 at the point in the game where the Notre Dame was 10-7. I want to talk about being up 12-10 with under a minute to go in the third quarter against a one-win BC team. So it's weird how the narrative kind of changed. We'll talk about the one comparable opponent, but we won't talk about like the game that took place and then the other. All right, so it'll be interesting. I think the biggest reason why I like Miami here, they got a defense unlike last year. I think you look at what Notre Dame did up front. You look at what even Georgia Tech last week, I think, had some success kind of rushing the passers. I think Bain and Messator will go off. I think Miami gets out here with win.
Yeah, look, if you're Miami, you win this game on the road, I think you have a really strong case to make the playoff. We go back to the game that a lot of Notre Dame fans act like it happened a year ago. It didn't. It happened this season. And they were really the only ones who held Jeremiah Love, like completely shut him down. 3 yards a carry, really did nothing in the game. Miami's defense did that. Now, I think the other part that this like little subplot narrative kicked in about, Miami has these terrible losses. And it's like they made it like they lost to BC and Stanford. I mean, SMU is now ranked in the top 20. And by the way, the Louisville team that they lost to on the last play, essentially, that team is now without their starting quarterback and their best 2 running backs. like
And their best defensive player too, I believe, right? Linebacker?
yeah, but their best player is Isaiah Brown, their running back. He's basically been out since this losing streak started for them. So again, I don't think they're a top 10 team, but they're also not the team that now you're seeing lose games at the end where they're just starting to plummet. And I think those are the things that, we get caught up in with all these the power rankings of this and that and measuring a team. Again,
Mhm.
like SMU is ranked, SMU, which was a team Miami lost to in overtime, is on the road, by the way, is very close to Notre Dame's best win in the rankings. That's USC. I mean, I don't think there's a big gap between the two of them. Again, that's one of Miami losses. That's Notre Dame's best win, essentially.
And if you look at a lot of the SAG, like SAGRE and FPI, SP Plus, a lot of the power rankings, SMU is ranked power rated higher than BYU. So it's like that's the respect that the numbers people have for my the other or SMU rather. The other crazy thing that I saw this week is someone passed along that tweet. I believe it was from the CFB accounts. What it was about how last year you had 7 instances where you had a team that won a head-to-head against a team with the exact same record, and they were ranked ahead of them all 7 times. This year, I think there were 7 instances where you've got head-to-head, exact same record right now, and the only one where the team that won the game isn't ranked ahead is Miami. So we'll see what happens on Saturday, and we'll see how this thing plays out.
All right, Bear. I will let Sammy P come in and smarten the place up as I go to the makeup room.
Time now for the walkthrough with our guy, Sammy P. Biggest game of the week, the top 15 matchup where I am right here in Ann Arbor. Ohio State opened up at around 11 or so. Starting to see some 9.5s pop, which kind of leads people to believe that maybe there's some issues here with the Ohio State receivers.
Well, when you think about the true number, Bear, I was talking to Matoy Pearson from Wynn Resorts. His true number is 13. Ohio State minus 13 at Michigan. Yet you see the number 10, 9.5. You think, oh, well, the receivers must be hurt. I'm hearing optimistic. I'm hearing that they could both go and likely will both go. So sharps are still betting on the Wolverines here. Maybe it's because Michigan's won 4 in a row. Maybe it's because Julian Sayin hasn't faced a defense like this since week 1, week 0. I lose track of what week that was against Texas. Even though it sounds like you might see both guys out there, they're still betting Michigan down to 9 offshore.
Yeah, when you see as well a lot of these public ticket count reports that guys like Ben Fox and John Ewing and Patrick Everson put out there, like the number one bet in terms of ticket count is Ohio State minus 9.5, and I think it is pretty telling that you have a large populace of smaller tickets on Ohio State, and the number keeps going the other way. I just ultimately don't know how many points Michigan is going to be able to score in the game. So we'll see what happens. I think it's all between the ear holes for the Buckeyes on Saturday, and we'll see what goes on in the Big House. Do you think the Big Ten championship game is the de facto Heisman Award winner game as well, where Indiana wins, Mendoza, Ohio State wins? It's saying, do we think it's that, or do we think maybe Jeremiah Love could swoop in here at the last minute and win this thing?
Well, there's one bookmaker who says it doesn't matter. As long as Mendoza doesn't throw 5 interceptions in the Big Ten title game, he's winning it.
Really?
Well, how come? And he said, if you would have said before the year that Indiana would go 12-0 and make the Big Ten championship, how does he not win, right? And I don't think it's decided, but this is just one man's opinion. And he says, as long as Indiana takes care of business against Purdue, and he isn't horrible against Ohio State, he's winning it. Again, that's one man's opinion. Jeremiah Love, I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think Pavi is going to get it. It really does feel like whoever wins that Big Ten trophy and hoists it up is going to have a really good shot. But as long as Mendoza doesn't go catatonic, it's probably his award to lose.
Wow. That would offer a betting opportunity, in my opinion, because I think that if Ohio State wins, and assuming that they win in Ann Arbor and they are 13-0, Big Ten champion, reigning national champion, number 1 in the country, quarterback, one head-to-head, There's some juicy prices right now.
They have to make a bet there, Bear.
And I'm now in a state in Michigan where I'm allowed to make a bet on the Heisman Trophy, unlike my home state of Connecticut. You can get some nice numbers, I'm saying right now. So that would be that'd be a bet I'd make. Another game, kind of a little bit off of the radar nationally. Texas Tech all but has a spot wrapped up in the Big 12 championship game, but a lot of action here on the Red Raiders and Mountaineers.
Well, everybody in Vegas basically saying the same thing. We couldn't make this number high enough. I'm not sure if you knew this, Bear. Texas Tech 10-1 ATS this year. So they played 11 games and covered 10 of them. And I believe they're 11-0 to the opening number, but the closing number, they're 10-1 ATS. So they decided, let's just make this as big as we can. We'll open it 21. And you look now, 23.5 and 24. They don't stop. They won't stop. People are betting the Red Raiders because they've been a cash cow all year long.
It's like minor league Notre Dame, where they can't make the Notre Dame numbers big enough. We talked about that a couple of weeks back with the Navy game and where that opened and closed, and then the Syracuse game last week where that ultimately went, and it was never even in doubt. So be curious to see Texas Tech come playoff time once that competition increases a little bit, and with their first round game on their home field, assuming that they do win and get to the playoff, what that might be in a college football playoff type atmosphere. We're obviously monitoring the Lane Kiffin situation here. Ole Miss, Mississippi State right now in the third quarter as we're recording this. But there are plenty of other teams out there looking for a coach. Florida and some others. Offshore, you can certainly look at these odds. Kalshi is another place you can look at these odds. What are the numbers out there kind of indicating right now with the way the money's going?
I was shooting some notes with Dave Mason, who's been booking this stuff offshore, and I can just give you the prices what they were Friday morning. So Lane was a heavy favorite to go to LSU, minus 250. Summerall was minus 300 to go to Auburn, and that leaves, of course, Florida. Well, Jed Fish was a very, very small favorite to go to Gainesville, about plus 105, plus 110. Obviously, lines are subject to change, and Lane will be the first domino to fall in that equation between LSU and Florida. But they had him to LSU. They had Summerall to Auburn, and they had Fish going to Gainesville.
It appears that the Fish to Gainesville is kind of slowing down a little bit of momentum. I was just checking out some updated prices at Kalshi now, and it appears that John Summerall has emerged as a guy there to really take a look at. It looks like Summerall right now, in terms of like the Kalshi type markets, is the favorite. And we'll see ultimately what that means. It appears that Lane will be going to LSU. Bruce earlier in the show talked about DJ Durkin and how maybe he could now be the guy at Auburn, which is amazing to think that might be the case. But hey, it's college football, and like you said, these things change very rapidly and very quickly. Heading on now to the 2-minute drill. Speaking of things that change rapidly and constantly, perception of team seasons. So much we all focus on playoff and bowl right now. I just want to give a little bit of a tip of the cap to a bunch of teams out there who look. We as bettors like to look for teams that might be licking the stamp. Couldn't wait for the season to end. It might just ultimately mail it in. Give Penn State a lot of credit. They could have folded up shop after that losing that game the way they did to Indiana. Come back since, they played great. They've been putting money in bettors' pockets the last few weeks. Can get bowl eligible with the win at Sunj on Saturday. So give Penn State a big tip of the cap for Terry Smith and that team for playing through a really tumultuous type season. Wisconsin, another team. We talked about Sammy earlier in the year with the Badgers being an under team, and they certainly did go under the season win total, but people were talking about Luke Fickell being fired and replaced, and McIntosh, the AD, gave him the vote of confidence. And what's happened since? Pulled a big upset against Washington, beat Illinois last week to guarantee us going under 8.5 on Illinois. Badgers playing well lately, especially on defense. Offense is still a work in progress, but again, team that could have packed it in and didn't. Wazoo last week again, Pac-12 kind of a lost conference. Oregon State, Washington State, they play this week. It's two teams kind of left behind. Wazoo who knew what the direction of that program was going to be. Went to JMU, lost by 4. Went to Ole Miss, 1-possession game. Went to Virginia, lost by a weird safety. All those 3 of those teams could wind up in the college football playoff. And Cougars gave him a battle on all 3 games. So give Wazoo a little bit of a shout out as well. And then Stanford, a team that Frank Reich took over in a weird situation. People thought this was like the worst Power 5 roster like ever. Won 4 games, beat Florida State, won the Axe. Good year for Stanford out there in a season that not many people thought they were going to do much. And I think before we go, Sammy, I would be remiss to not ask you. I wanted to go to the Book of Sam, Sammy P. Vandy at Tennessee. Set me a price on the Vols fan, the Vol Nation in Knoxville, and the Pavia brothers getting into a little bit of a skirmish there, and the big one at Neyland on Saturday.
Oh, please. The yes is at least minus 150, right? That's the floor. And I feel like once you get a hold of that number, we might get to minus 180, minus 190. Do you think everybody's going to be cordial in that? No chance.
Yeah, especially, Josh Heupel, how heated and edgy he can be, and hearing about Pavia and the Vols and Clark Lee reportedly getting an extension. I think the Vols put up a big number. I think over 33.5, 34.5, somewhere around there. Team total is a bet that I would be willing to make for a team that looked really good last week against a Florida team that surprisingly hadn't packed it until that point. But Vols went out there in the first half and left no doubt. Hopefully we've left no doubt in where your wagers are going to be heading on this weekend. Thanks again to Bruce. Thanks again to Sammy P for always joining us. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast information. Remember, bless you bet. What you listen to.